Okay. A lot to talk about.
A lot to talk about?
Sure.
Good things?
Why not? Okay, Parshas Balak. So the Torah begins, Vayar Balak ben Zippor, Balak the son of Zippor, saw everything that Am Yisrael did to the Amorite, to Sichon, and to Og, how they conquered their countries, their lands, and how they conquered them so quickly. So Moab was afraid. Balak was a politician. He knew how to get the people concerned. He told them half-truths. We know that Bnei Israel were not allowed to attack Moab. Moab was never in threat or in fear. There was always a law. You could not attack Moab. And Moab knew that. But Balak got them concerned. Balak said they could trick you, they could have other nations attack you, and then they would come in to defeat those nations and attack you in the process. So what did he do? He needed help. So since Moab or Balak understood that the power behind the Jewish people was their leader, Moshe, and Moshe lived for a long time in Midian and was raised in Midian, so he consulted for 40 years at least. So he consulted Bilam. Who was Bilam? Bilam was a Navi in Midian. And he figured that if I can find out from Bilam the secret behind Moshe Rabbeinu's unparalleled successes, I'll be able to defeat him. So Balak had a mission, he had a plan, he was a politician, he knew exactly what to do and how to do it. Anyway, the elders of Moab and Midian went. They brought him presents, they brought him gifts, and the first night, Bilam says back to them, sorry, I can't go with you. I'd like to, but Hashem won't let me. I have to do whatever Hashem says. Okay, Balak is undeterred. Balak comes back again and says to him, what are you talking about? You don't think I can give you honor? I'm going to give you more honor. You don't think I can give you money? I can give you more money. Now, Hashem says to him, you want to go with these people? Bilam says, yes, I want to go. Okay, you can go. What was different the second time than the first time? So Rabbi Ephraim has a whole thing here from Rabbi Schwab, but Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky said the same thing. Many people said it. What? It was more than the desire. The first time that Bilam wanted to go, he really wanted to do it for all the right reasons. He wanted to help Moab. When a person does something sincerely, they can succeed. That's what Rosh Schwab says. So when Bilam was very sincere, I want to do it. I really, really want to do it. Hashem said, no, you can't go. And, you know, Rosh Schwab was of the opinion that communism in the beginning succeeded because the organizers were very sincere. Over time, it became corrupted, and when it became corrupted, it failed. But when in the beginning, it was very, very sincere. So the second time, Balak came to Bilam. He says, you don't think I can give you enough honor? I can give you honor. You don't think I can give you enough money? I can give you money. Now Hashem says to Bilam, do you want to go? He says, you want to go. Why do you want to go this time? I want to go for the honor.
Money.
I want to go for the money. Now you want to go for yourself, for the money, for the honor. Now you can go.
No.
Now you're not going to succeed. Now I have a chance that you're going to fail. So it was interesting, the whole approach that Bilam used changed from one time to the other, and therefore the first time was a no, but the second time was yes. Now, it's just very, very interesting. It's very, very interesting, this whole Parsha of Balak. Okay? We always read it during the 3 weeks. You know, it's always right before or right after Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. We have the weeks of Balak, and then we have Pinchas, Matos Maseh, and Devar. So Balak is right around the time of the 3 weeks. And according to Chazal, Bilam had a level of nevuah very similar to Moshe. Now that's confusing, very confusing, because Moshe was a holy person, And therefore Hashem spoke to him mouth to mouth, peh el peh, not through riddles and not through dreams. Bilam was not a very special person. He wasn't the type of a person like Moshe. So why did he have this type of nevuah? So Rashi says he needed to have, the non-Jews needed to have someone who they could consult with, so after 120 years, when they come up to Shemayim, they won't have an excuse. Life is unfair. We didn't have a Navi like Moshe. If we would have had someone like Moshe, we would have been better people. So Hashem says, you had someone like Moshe, you had Bilam. Of course, Bilam took whatever powers he had and he corrupted it. To give an example, a person asks for a recipe, and they follow the recipe, and it doesn't taste the same as their mother's food. So the mother says to the daughter, did you follow the recipe? Yes, exactly. What pot did you use? That pot. Did you wash the pot out first before you use it? No, I didn't wash out the pot. She says, well, then you didn't follow the recipe, because inside the pot was leftover food, and that corrupted it. You can give Bilam all the nevuah you want, but if the person is not a special person, it doesn't come out the same. It's not going to work. Moshe Rabbeinu worked very hard on himself. Moshe Rabbeinu was someone who spent an entire lifetime isolated, trying to build a relationship to be closer to Hashem. Bilam did not. Bilam did not work for him. And yet, he had a certain nevuah level like Moshe. In some respects, you have to also appreciate that a Navi gets a dream. And what does the Navi do? He interprets the dream and says nevuah. Hashem didn't trust Bilam to interpret the dream. Hashem didn't want Bilam to take his message and put his spin on it. Everybody puts their own spin on it. So Hashem told Bilam exactly what to say. That was like Moshe. Hashem put the words in Bilam's mouth. So in that regard, it wasn't that Bilam was so special, but rather Hashem didn't trust him. Hashem put the words in his mouth that he should know what to say, exactly what to say. Now, let's go a little bit further. The Gemara talks about who wrote the Torah. So Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the Torah through nevuah of Hashem. Of course, a lot of the Torah Moshe lived through. So he wrote it based on his own observations also. Balak, this parsha, Moshe knew nothing about.
Where is the Balak?
It was all nevuah, right? That means the Jewish people were in the camp. They had no clue what was happening on top of the mountain. They had no clue of Balak going to Bilam, to hire Bilam, to curse the Jewish people. That means life was going on as regular. And whatever was happening behind the scenes. And Hashem said that in the Haftarah, you have no idea how many nations plot your destruction that I prevent, but you simply don't know about it. So Moshe wrote down the story of Balak and Bilam. He put it in Hebrew. They weren't speaking Hebrew. They were speaking Aramaic, whatever language they spoke. According to the Gemara, Moshe wrote a whole book about Balak and Bilam. It was not just this. The Gemara says that Moshe wrote the book of Eov and the Torah and the book of Balak. Like there was an entire book. It could have been hundreds and hundreds of pages that we just don't have anymore. A lot of these books were lost. But he wrote down much of the conversation.
What language they use?
I have no idea. Aramaic of some kind. They could have used Midianite language, Moab language. But Moshe took from his book that he heard through Nevuah just the highlights of the story. So Parshas Balak is just a small sampling, like a summary of what happened. It doesn't go through all the discussions.
Moshe didn't know about this also story. He got it from Hashem.
Right. That means
But
Moshe,
he wrote a book, so Hashem
and he
told
wrote
him
a
lot.
book on everything that Hashem told him about what happened.
Originally, where's the Balak coming from? How come
Balak
he
is
deserves-
from Moab,
Yeah, but how come he deserves his portion on the book? Not somebody else.
because there was a lessons to be learned. There were lessons of the stories of what he wanted to do, what he wanted to accomplish, and
there's a lot of nations actually, unfortunately, that were trying to destroy the Jewish nation.
and yet this one got recorded And we'll understand a little bit why, because it leads into the history of the Jewish people. Now, let's talk about the history of the Jewish people. In the desert, you had Moshe Rabbeinu. What was his legal status? Was he the prime minister? What was he?
President.
Was he the president? And president means he's elected. He wasn't elected.
He was Navi.
He was appointed.
So he's a
Yeah,
leader.
he was a Navi.
So, according to the Gemara, it seems that Moshe had a din of a melech, a king. Okay? Yosef was a king, not of the Jewish people. He was a king in Egypt. Okay. There were no kings in Israel for the longest time. That means Yehoshua took over. Did Yehoshua have a law of a king? Now, when you're a king, your rules are different. If you offend the king, you lose your life versus someone else. We know that after Yehoshua, we had shoftim, judges. Devorah was a shofet, a judge. He wasn't a king. Gidon, Yiftach, Shimshon. These were all shoftim, judges. After the shoftim came Nevi'im, Shmuel. Shmuel was not a king. He was from Shevet Levi. He was a Navi. Everybody respected him. Everybody followed him. Finally, the people said, we want a king. We want to be like everybody else. Okay. A rejection of Shmuel. Who was that king? Shaul HaMelech. Was he from Shevet Yehuda? No. He was from Shevet Binyamin. How long was he king for? 3 years. He made mistakes. Right? With Amalek, etc. Cost him his life. Who replaced Shaul as king? There was Ishbosheth for a while, but eventually, who really took over the king? David HaMelech. Okay? So there was going to be a switch from Binyamin to Yehuda, Malchus based on it. But for hundreds of years, there were no kings. They were led by leaders, but not kings. Moshe had a din of a king, of a melech. Yet the Jewish people did not follow him like a king. They rebelled against him many times.
A lot of problems.
And it caused a lot of problems. It's like I think either Ben Gurion or one of the prime ministers of Israel once says, you're the prime minister of a country, I'm a prime minister of a bunch of prime ministers, like they all think they're the bosses. The Jewish people looked at themselves as Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. We're all kings, we're all Kohanim. I mean, the Jews didn't look to leaders, you lead, we'll follow. They weren't followers, okay? Now, therefore, Moshe was a king, but it wasn't the type of kingdom that could succeed. Moshe's children did not take over from him. Okay, they were not going to follow. Normally, a king goes from father to son, father to son. That didn't happen here. So then the Meforshim ask, what was missing? What did Moshe not have that created in him problems to be the king? That was the question. The answer is he did not have ga'ava. What is ga'ava? Arrogance.
Yeah.
In order to be a king, you have to be able to have fancy clothes and the throne room. You have to have arrogance.
Respect for yourself.
You have to, demand respect.
Yeah.
Royalty. You have to have royalty. Moshe was a Talmud Chacham. He enjoyed learning a good Gemara. He learned in the yeshiva.
Simple.
He lacked ga'ava. Okay. So then the Meforshim say, where did the Jewish people get that ga'ava? Moshe was just the opposite. He was the anav. He was the most humble person. So if you have a nation called the Jewish people, and they don't have this ingredient, ga'ava, arrogance, where was it going to come from? That's what they asked. The answer was, it was going to come from Moab. It had to come from outside. So there was a tradition. There was a Mesorah. The Mesorah was that somewhere down the road, there would be someone from Moab, a woman from Moab, who was going to join and marry into the Jewish people.
Yes.
And she was going to bring this magic ingredient.
Good.
That was Ruth. She was royalty. She married into Yehuda with Boaz. And eventually that changed things to where David HaMelech exploded on the scene. Okay, so far we got that. According to some Meforshim, Balak knew about this. So Balak said to himself, okay, let's figure this out. Balak said the Jewish people are almost perfect. They're missing an ingredient. And guess where that ingredient is coming from? From us. Therefore, I know that no matter what I do, the one nation the Jews cannot attack and wipe out is Moab.
Yeah, the God say.
Right? I'm protected. I have a shield. I have, I am insulated. I'm protected. I can trap the Jewish people. I can curse the Jewish people. I can attack the Jewish people. And he was right. He was right. It's interesting that after David HaMelech became king,
He destroyed them.
he destroyed Moab. He said, we no longer need them. Now it's time to bring back on Moab all the terrible things they did over the last few hundred years, and he wiped them out. He wiped them out.
Are you allowed to do this?
David
Yeah.
could, he's a king. He wiped them out,
Because they bothered them.
right? He was not going to tolerate it. But here, Moab gets Midian to join in. They try to curse, unsuccessful. And then in the end, they trap the Jewish men, 24,000 Jews die. Moshe is furious, Hashem is angry. Hashem says, get the army, take revenge. So Moshe says, okay, we're going to attack Moab, we're going to attack Midian. Hashem says, no, hold on here.
Hold on.
Moab, you're not going to attack. Only Midian. Only Midian?
They both.
Who started the fight? Moab. Who hired Midian? Moab. Who's the real enemy? Moab. Let's go after Moab. Hashem says, no, you can't. Why not? They have a secret ingredient. We don't have it yet.
Yes. It's not ready.
Not ready yet. We don't have it. Midian, we don't need. Take care of Midian. So Balak had a plan. He knew this was going to happen. He knew one day somebody from his family was going to join the Jewish people. And they were going to give him the secret ingredient. And they were going to create Malchus. And that Malchus was going to create Moshiach. And he was worried about it and he didn't want it to happen. So what did he do? What did he do? If you know that somebody from your country is going to marry into the Jewish people, so he did whatever he could to get Hashem angry enough to say, Moab is forbidden to all Jews. So when the Jewish people were traveling, they says, can we have some food and water? He said, no. We'll pay for it. He says, I don't care. But we're thirsty and hungry. Too bad. Right?
Who was it? Wow.
Moab.
Oh.
Moab said, no.
They don't give nothing.
No. And Hashem says, okay, that's it. Nobody from Moab can ever become Jewish. Not even 10 generations.
I'll come
You cannot convert.
to
Comes the Chachamim, and the Chachamim say, hold on. Hashem was only talking about the men. Because it was the men who served the food. How do we know this? We learned it from Avraham Avinu. Because who served the angels? Avraham Avinu did. And when they asked Avraham, where's Sarah? She's in the tent. She prepared the food, but she didn't serve the food. So comes the Gemara, and the Gemara says, yes, Hashem says Moab is forbidden. But only the men of Moab, not the women. So Balak had a good plan. It worked 50%. But it still didn't work. So Balak says, no, that's not going to fly. I got to get Hashem angry at the women of Moab. So he takes the women together with the women of Midian,
his daughter.
and at the end of the Pasha, his own daughter, and they go and they create a trap like only women can do. Right? A trap for men that only women can do. There are so many medrashim as to how this trap was. They said that they had a big sign up, garage sale. Garage sale. So a lot of the Jewish men came to buy things. And when they looked, everything was old and broken. So it says, what kind of a sale is this?
Inside.
Inside. You want the good stuff?
Inside.
The good stuff is inside. And there they had all the women dressed in bikinis or whatever it was, selling all the good stuff
Casino.
inside. What?
Casino.
The casino, whatever it was. And that's where the trap was.
So
In
how
wine.
come, so
Right?
how come after
In
this
wine.
everything, after what happened? Especially with
Didn't work. Hashem didn't do it. Hashem didn't fall for the trap. So here, Moab is trying to use the women to get Hashem to make marrying women from Moab also usher. Okay, so far so good. We're following?
Yes.
You followed everything. Moab's thinking, the Jewish people needs this, everything's happening. Enter Zimri ben Sol. Now he's a Nasi, he's a prince, a leader of Shevet Shimon. Did he know Torah? Yes. Did he know Gemara? Yes. Was he a Talmud Chacham? Yes. Was he a teenager? No. He was a man, maybe 150 years old. Was he just interested in having an extra wife? Was that his problem?
No.
He didn't have enough wives. He could have had as many wives as he wanted. And when they conquered Midian, they brought all these Midian women back with them anyway. So that wasn't the problem. So why did this guy go after Cosby Batsur?
what's the problem?
What did he want? What did he want from Cosby?
What do you want to prove?
What did he want to prove? Should I tell you what? You ready for this? Okay. Zimri said, this Balak is trying to get Hashem angry. One day he's going to succeed. If he succeeds, what's going to happen? There'll be no Rus. No Rus means no Malchus Beis David, no Mashiach. So I got to find Rus now. So he went after the daughters of the king. Cosby Basur was the daughter of the king. She could have been Rus. She could have been the Rus that was necessary. He wasn't interested in rebelling against God. He wasn't following his Yetzer Hara. He had a plan. His plan was, why do we have to wait a few hundred years for this girl called Rus? All we need is a princess from Moab who's arrogant. I'll take her now. I'll bring her into the fold now. I'll get her into the Jewish people now. And then we can go after Moab, wipe out Moab. We don't care after that.
That's what I was thinking about.
It was 200 years.
It's actually a fairly good
It
plan.
was 200 years in advance.
Makes no difference. This was his plan,
Right?
right? This was his plan. And it is a really good plan. Why do we have to wait for Rus to come back with Naomi and meet Boaz and make the shidduch then? I'm going to go now. I'm going to bring the princess from Moab now. I'll marry her, bring her in. We'll get that secret ingredient going throughout our community. And one day Mashiach will be born. It was a good plan. What would have made it a better plan had he consulted Moshe Rabbeinu, because Moshe was the Melech. Had he gone through the normal steps. But it wasn't about rebellion. He wasn't interested in having a non-Jewish girlfriend. It had nothing to do with that.
Want to bring them up.
Right. Now, Pinchas, who didn't like his way of doing business, you see, with Rus, it was different. Rus first came back, and she went through a conversion process. And Boaz first said, maybe there's someone else who wants to marry you. There was a process. It was called a dating process, a marriage process. Boaz went to the Sanhedrin, got a ruling. Are we allowed to marry women from Moab? The Sanhedrin was split. There was a ruling. Shmuel Hanavi wrote a whole book about it. Okay? The book of Ruth. So Boaz did it the right way, the straight way.
With the advice.
Zimri took shortcuts. You can't take shortcuts. Not on something so important. So
he tried
Pinchas
he tried to go without permission.
without guidance. Pinchas wasn't going to accept it. Now you understand that when Pinchas killed Zimri and Cosby, what was the reaction of the Jewish people?
This guy is not.
They're furious. They're furious. What's he doing? Who told him to do it? He's as much a non-Jew as they are. He comes from Israel. They were so angry at Pinchas.
He's like his grandfather.
Right, they were so angry at Pinchas because Pinchas, what did you do? Cosby and Zimri ben Solo were going to plant the seed of Moshiach. And you know what you did? You put Moshiach at risk forever. And Hashem says, you know what? Maybe they're right. So Pinchas will one day become Eliyahu. And you know what Eliyahu's job is? Is to bring
Moshiach.
Moshiach. That means when Pinchas, that was his tikkun. When Pinchas did what he did, the reaction was, what are you doing? You're going to delay Mashiach. Hashem says, you're right, now you're going to have to bring Mashiach. You're going to be the one who's going to announce Mashiach. You got the job. But Zimri ben Solu, as wrong as he might have been, I'm trying to convey a message here. He wasn't just a bum. He wasn't someone who didn't believe in Torah and mitzvahs. He was a Nasi. He didn't get to be one of the top leaders. Imagine if the Chidah had done this, or Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. Would you have right away said, he's just going after his Yetzer Hara? You would have had to stop and say to yourself, these people don't go after the Yetzer Hara. They have to have a plan. He had a plan. It may not have been the right plan, but they had a plan. It's fascinating when you do some research and you look at it. He had a plan. You have to think about what that plan was. So Parshas Balak is a very serious parsha. From beginning, Balak and Bilam, and the blessings, and at the end, and Zimri, and next week Pinchas, and all of this takes place during the 3 weeks when we're talking about the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, because people jumped the gun and ben adam l'chavero, and people didn't know respect, and people were very quick to judge. And there's a hidden message. You know what the hidden message is? Don't look at Torah stories and think they're simple. They're not simple. These are not simple people. They're complicated people. In the Vardik was a yeshiva in Europe. And they were very big in Musar. My father learned in the Vardik. My father had learned in Pinsk, which was in Poland, in the Navarric yeshiva by Rav Shmuel Weintraub until World War II broke out. And then he escaped before the Germans came, and he made it through Russia to Bryks, and then he made it to Japan, and from Japan he made it to China. He was in Shanghai.
Why China, by the way? At that time China was more safe than Japan.
Yeah, believe it or not, Japan was joining the Axis, was joining with Germany. They were already making the plans. China was not. China was the shipping lanes from China to America were open. So they came to China with the hope to get on a boat to go to America, to San Francisco. What happened was Japan bombed Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
And then Japan took over the entire Pacific. No boats went. So all these Jews who went to China to get out were stuck.
How many years?
How did they find out?
4 years, 5 years.
How did they find out in Poland that China is safe?
They didn't. My father had a visa from a Japanese council called Sugihara. Sugihara gave out thousands of these visas to Japan. Jews took them, and they went to Japan. Okay? And then you had Raoul Waldenberg, who also gave out visas, who got people into Switzerland or further point east. That means Germany was eating all of Europe. Where was the safe place was Russia. Because Germany had gone into Austria, Italy, they were everywhere. France, attacking England, nowhere in Europe was safe.
make a peace with Russia because they say we're not going
But
to
they
fight.
made peace with Russia. Eventually, that peace was fake.
Yeah.
But when they made peace with Russia, it meant to Jews, you want to be safe, away from Germany? Go to Russia. So they all went to Russia. But the Russians didn't want them, and they didn't want to end up in Siberia. Some made it down to Tashkent. There are many Ashkenazi
Yeah.
Jews
Yeah.
that were saved,
Chabad.
right?
And
They
then,
made it down to
and then how
Tashkent.
they find out over there in Russia they have to go to the Japan and then the
Because it was the
China.
only way from Russia to get to America. They wanted to go to America.
Oh,
Sì, Alaska рядом.
They couldn't go across the Atlantic because the U-boats were sinking everything. Even the ocean liners were being sunk. My mother was in Vienna. She also made it to China. She went through Italy, all the way around India. They traveled thousands of miles to make it to China. My
they
mother,
met each other in China.
in China, in a restaurant. Yeah, my mother had a restaurant. My father arrived in China. He was the assistant rabbi there to Rabbi Ashkenazi in 1941. My mother came after the Anschluss, so she left Austria in 1939. She was in third grade. She was like 9 years old with her family, and she made it also to China, all with the same goal: get to America. Eventually, they did. My parents came through San Francisco. Now, most Jews came across the Atlantic through Ellis Island, but my parents came through San Francisco,
What year?
1946.
When the Japanese was there?
No, the war ended in 1945.
Oh, the Japanese
And then
already
it was after that. And only my parents made it. My grandparents were still stuck in
China.
China.
Were you born in China?
No, I was not. I was born in Denver, Colorado.
Colorado, one of the best.
Oh, okay.
And in the hospital at a very early age. And I have three
Yeah, then-
older sisters, and all three of them were born in Denver.
Year and date
In
and
47, 48, they were born. My older sisters were born.
year, date,
But my
month,
my
time,
my
date.
my parents, they came across. It was very, very difficult. Then my mother couldn't get her parents out. There were no visas. There were no visas
Out of China?
out of China. You see, you
They,
think
they die over there?
no. You talk about what's going on today with immigration and Trump. Nobody knows the history. You talk about, okay, there was a different world back then. But the borders of the United States were never really that open. For a while they were, but they weren't open to a lot of the Jewish people that wanted to come. They were closed. So someone told my father in 1947 or 48, someone told my father that if you want to get a visa, you go to Washington, D.C., and you go to the president.
Who's that?
And the president at that time was Truman.
Oh, Truman.
And you'll get a gold star visa. Ask the president. Now, my father survived Europe. He didn't know Washington, so he got on a train and he went to Washington, D.C. And when he got to Washington, D.C., someone said to him, "Where do you want to go?" He said, "Well, I want to go see the president. I'm going to the White House." Well, he never made it to the White House. You just don't walk into the White House. It's not like a house where, my father thought it was a house. You knock on the door, you say, "Hello, how are you? I'm so-and-so. I'm from Denver. I'd like some gold visas, gold star visas." Doesn't work that way. He never made it anywhere near the White House. But my father was a very smart man. And he was from Colorado. So he went to the senator of Colorado. Okay? Now the senator,
Can talk to the
you can talk to the people because the senators are elected by you. So if you're from the state of Colorado, you can see the senator of Colorado. So the senator of Colorado says, "You're in luck, Rabbi. I have a meeting this afternoon with President Truman. Come with me. We'll go together." So the senator took him to Truman. And my father met Truman. And he said to him, "How can I help you?"
Senator was in
Washington. Yeah. "How can I help you?" My father says that my mother, his wife, my mother, her parents are stuck in China and they can't get visas. So he came all the way from Colorado to get 2 visas, presidential gold star visas. And Truman said, "Okay, I'll give it to you." And he gave him 2 gold star visas from my grandparents. Then Truman made a mistake that he would never do again. He asked my father, "Is there anything else I can do for you?" And my father says, "Yeah, I have an uncle and aunt stuck in China. I could use another 2. "While you're at it, And he said, I'll never ask the rabbi what I can do again. And he gave him another 2. So my uncle and aunt and my grandparents came across and settled in Denver based on 4 gold star visas from President Truman. So my father took the train back as if nothing happened, you know? Yeah, as if nothing happened. He just
Does
didn't
gold visa still
know.
exist?
What?
Is that the same thing existed at the gold
Well, you know, you heard on the news that when immigration was separating the kids from the families, the Democrats were saying, you know, Congress doesn't have to solve this problem. The president can change it in a day. The president is the leader of the United States of
So
America.
basically, he
He wants
stamps.
you
He can do whatever he wants.
Basically, he stamps considered.
He can stamp, he can say he can go to an immigrant and say, I make you a citizen. Go through the process. He can do whatever he wants. Mr. Trump is doing what he thinks is right.
How to get it.
The question is how to do it. So that's how they got to it. So,
But on top of the president, you have liberal people, they who control the president.
well, you have advisors, you have the, right, you know, you have the cabinet, and you have the advisors, you know, you have that thing. Okay, anyway, so my father learned in Novardok. Novardok was an unusual community. There's a story that there was a local thief. A Jewish guy was known to be, he robbed houses, although no one had proof. One night, this thief comes to shul, opens up the Aron Kodesh. Now the Shamish is watching, thinking this guy might try to steal the Sefer Torahs. And he starts davening to Hashem, please give me Ruach HaKodesh, I want Ruach HaKodesh. So the Shamish comes down and says to this thief, what do you want Ruach HaKodesh for? You're a thief! What do you need Ruach HaKodesh for?
I want to know how to get inside
to
the...
steal.
So he says, well, I need it for my business. You know, sometimes I see these beautiful big houses, I watch it for weeks, when I break in, there's nothing there, the boxes are empty. Then I see these broken down houses, I think there's nothing in there, and they have thousands of dollars. So if I had Ruach HaKodesh, it would make my job a lot easier. That's what he said. So from Novardok, they said that was what Bilam was all about. Bilam had Ruach HaKodesh. A person has Ruach HaKodesh, he can use it for good things. What did Bilam do? He did magic tricks with them. He was a sorcerer, he did magic tricks. He didn't bring people closer to Hashem. No, he pushed them further away with his magic tricks. What a waste, what a waste. That's what they say.
He won't trick the Hashem. He say, I want to cause the Erev Rav.
That's right, it was all a trick.
Because the Hashem didn't like Erev Rav, but they give problem, not a
all
problem
a
with Jewish
trick.
people. Yeah.
They bring down the story that there was a man whose little boy swallowed a coin.
Yeah.
That got stuck in his throat. Couldn't breathe, he was coughing. So he brought him to the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish was a great tzaddik in Bnei Brak. And the Chazon Ish said to him, you want to get the coin out? Take him to the Ponevezher Rav. The Ponevezher Rav, the rabbi from Ponevezher who built the yeshiva.
In Polish.
Right? Why? So they said to him, why the Ponevezher Rav? He's not a doctor. He says, no, but he can get money out of anybody. So everybody laughed, and the kid laughed, and the coin just jumped out. You know, he says that was the humor of the Chazon Ish. You know, the Ponevezher Rav, he can get money from anybody. You know.
I swallowed one time.
Yeah, so he swallowed. Yeah.
When I was a kid, one time my grandmother gave me, I swallowed.
And
He swallowed.
it came out in the wash.
Yeah.
It came out in the
It was-
wash.
He didn't stop.
It was bad now, they're all this. No kid. Acting young.
It's interesting. There's this Rav, Rabbi Elimelech Biederman. So he has all these stories. He says there was once a person collecting money, went to a very wealthy man, and the man gave him a donation. And the person said to him, you know, you barely read Hebrew, how come you have such a respect for Torah and that you give such a nice donation? So he says, I once consulted a rabbi because I had no children. And for the longest time, I couldn't have children, and the rabbi said to me, you know what you should do? Thank Hashem for not having children. He says, what? He says, yeah. Trust that Hashem gives you what you want. And if Hashem doesn't give you children, maybe you're not supposed to have children. So at least say, thank you to Hashem, I don't have children. The next year he had a child.
No.
like a reverse psychology.
Oh,
It wasn't very like that. He says there was a wealthy man. There was a man that needed money for an investment. He wanted to buy a building. It was a good deal. Couldn't raise the money. So the rabbi said to him, "Thank Hashem that you don't have the money." Not only is after he died, thanking Hashem he didn't have the money, some guy sold the house, had all this money, wanted to invest it. They both met, and he invested it. And they made a lot of money. So it says because Hashem usually gives you what you need. So if Hashem doesn't give it to you, probably you don't need it. So thank Hashem for not needing it. If Hashem says, no, you really do need it, Hashem will correct what you said. It all depends how you approach Hashem. He says, when you talk about emunah, bitachon, faith in Hashem. Very interesting story. There's this kid. The kid goes to all his friends at school and he says, I have the best father in the world. My father loves me. My father takes care of me. My father gives me whatever I need, whatever I want. He's the best father. So one of his friends says to him, I got to see this father. I have a father also. My father is tough, always screaming at me and disciplining me and punishing me. I want to see this father of yours. And they're coming home, and he calls, Dad, Dad, and he doesn't hear anything. And on the kitchen table, there's a cup with water. He's thirsty. So he picks up the cup, and his father comes running in and smashes the cup right out of his hand. So the kid's friend says, Ha! I knew you were lying. That's like my father. He smacks me first and explains what he does afterwards. I'm going to tell all the kids in the world that your father is no better than all our fathers. You're a liar. The second friend says, no. Obviously, there must be a reason why he did this. Okay? And the father says that he had filled up a cup with bleach. Because his wife asked him for a cup of bleach. He left it on the table. So when this kid picked up the cup, ready to drink the bleach, he didn't have time to tell him no. He just slapped it out of his hand because the bleach would have burned him, would have killed him. The third friend said, I didn't even need to ask. If you told me your father is such a loving father, when he did what he did, I didn't even question. I knew that whatever I was about to do was going to be bad for me. So he says, that's how Hashem is. Sometimes Hashem knocks the cup out of our hands. The first person's reaction is, I told you God is no good. The second one says, no, there's got to be a reason. I just don't know what the reason is. Please tell me the reason. But the third one says, I know there's got to be a reason. I don't even need to know the reason. I believe that whatever the reason is, there's a reason. It's supposed to be. So how we relate to Hashem and to everything else, it depends a lot on us. They bring down the story from the Baal Shem Tov. You ever hear of the Baal Shem Tov? He was a nice Russian Jew, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's from Russia, isn't he? The Baal Shem Tov? I thought so. I think so. Not from Tashkent. No one's perfect. I understand no one's perfect.
He's from Bukhara.
Maybe. That could be. He says that Erev Shabbat he would go to the mikveh. So he had just gone to the mikveh and he was walking back to go to shul, and a bunch of drunks, non-Jewish drunks, were in the street, and the Baal Shem Tov didn't want them to touch him because he had just gone to the mikveh. So he stands against the wall, so that they should walk by. They shouldn't touch him because he had just gone to mikveh. And he hears one of the non-Jews say to the other, Ivan, watch out for that Jew. Make sure you don't touch him. We don't want to get ourselves dirty. So the Baal Shem Tov says that it's an amazing thing, he says. We isolate ourselves from the world thinking we're going to be holier, we're going to keep ourselves pure. The truth is, the world has isolated us as well. It works both ways. Someone said to me, I forgot where I heard it, that there was this Pakistani grocery store, I think in the 5 towns. And one of the rabbis went in to buy something, and she says, you're a rabbi? She says, yeah. He says, I got to tell you, I'm very disappointed. He says, what are you disappointed about? He says, there was a bunch of Jewish kids in here. I could tell they were Jewish because they were wearing their skull caps and everything. And they were using language that I've never heard. It was horrible language. And I went over to those kids and I said to them, you're Jewish. You're supposed to be closer to God than anybody else. And you talk this way? That's a horrible thing. And this rabbi was so shocked.
What happened?
Your battery?
You scared me.
It's hot?
Yeah, it's
For
circus.
what?
Why?
With the coins.
Oh, you can't have that. You can't. They don't mix well. They don't play well with others. Well, gotta be careful that it doesn't just
You burn yourself?
Right. It hurts. So, the rabbi said that it's so shocking that here you have a non-Jewish lady, a Pakistani lady, who has this deep respect for Jewish people, and she has a higher expectation of how we're supposed to act than we ourselves have. That's shocking. To get Musar from a non-Jewish person. That a non-Jewish person should remind us who we are. He says it reminded him of Bilam. Bilam, who knew what was going to come out of his mouth? We thought the horrible things would come out of his mouth. And some of the most beautiful blessings, the Matovu Olechu Yaakov, some of the davening that we have, comes from Bilam.
Yes, but God gave him this.
God gave it to him. But it's interesting, he says. It's just interesting how it comes from Bilam.
So it's supposed to be Parashat Shema Yisrael and Balak.
That's correct. The Gemara says that they were going to put in the Shema Yisrael a lot of Parshas Bilam, or Balak, but it was just too long. It would have been taken too long. Okay? So, we talk about all the wonderful things that happened in how he built all these Mizbeachs, and he brought 14 korbanot, 3 times, 42. And there are not many Parshios that are named after people.
Yes.
You have Noach, and Yisro. Noach, I understand. Yisro, I understand. Korach is a little bit of interesting, and Chayei Sarah we understand. But here is Balak, and you said, what's so special about Balak? And the truth of the matter is, there seems to be a lot of specialty about Balak. Balak seems to be, a lot of things we learned from Balak and Bilam that we just didn't know, that we were totally blinded to. But now, at least the whole parsha makes sense. So next week, when we read about Pinchas and why the people reacted that way, we understand. Zimri ben Solu had a plan. The whole thing that happened was shocking. And Pinchas was going to come in, and Pinchas upset the plan, and there was a price to pay.
Because disrespected Moshe Rabbeinu, that's why he was upset.
And there was a price to pay. Had he consulted Moshe Rabbeinu may have actually validated the plan. And then things might have been different. It's interesting. People have good ideas, but you have to put them through the regular channels. Have a good night,
Ten
everybody.
miracles happened at that time, they said, when the Pinchas killed the...
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of miracles. And he didn't become Tomei, and then he became a Kohen afterwards, and then he got the neshama of Nadav and Avihu. A lot of changes happening.
And because by himself, one.
Yeah, it was a lot of...
Very hard to pick it up. 2 people, big people, it's not the...
To be alive at that time, let's go in a time machine, let's go back to, let's watch what happens. Come back and report.